Thank you. Thank you so much, William. The Secretary General and Mr. Yandebo, and indeed the Secretary General of ICS, have already highlighted the challenges that I would say are global. I will just highlight a couple more in a granular detail. One of the things that we have found out is that governments and governments that were not very serious in enforcing MLC 2006 on the living conditions provided for shipboard officers and crew, realized that that was a major challenge. And companies who did not provide good living conditions for their crew, simply because, okay, I'm going to be there for 3 weeks, 4 weeks max, and I'll be off, without realizing that situations might happen where it makes it inevitable for crew to stay longer. So that is one of the major challenges that we immediately discovered in the ships that came to our region. Another one was the absence of detention centers, because even though ports would allow a crew member to come ashore, the point was that there was no detention centers to keep them until they are tested, they receive the COVID test before proceeding to either enter into the city or travel to their home countries. And another issue was actual lack of access to COVID tests, especially at the beginning. Most countries did not have COVID tests, and those who had did not have sufficient, so they had to prioritize in testing the essential workers, the most dangerous groups in country. The seafarers were not at that time prioritized. So one of the things would then be for ships to equip themselves with COVID tests equipment. Am I able to share my slides? So I will go to the next slide, not just not to waste time. That slide focuses on the practices, what we have done in the light of the challenges which has already been highlighted. It was very good, and it is very good indeed, that the IMO showed leadership in this emergency, because most countries did not know what to do. So the circulars and the guidelines that were produced by the IMO came in very, very handy. And at the MOU regional level, our work was to immediately disseminate these guidelines, these circulars, to our member states, employing them to use them and circulate to the stakeholders. So several countries in our region took note of it and did and do continue to send out COVID-19 advice based on the circulars from the IMO, and also issued marine notice. Some countries, like the Maritime Administration in Nigeria and Ghana, in May, issued marine notices that immediately designated seafarers as key workers. And that was helpful, because at that time we had border closures, international border closures by air and also by road. But it came in very, very useful. The data that is given by Yandebo is fairly representative of what's happening in our region, even though some member states, for whatever reason, are slow in reporting to the IMO. But that designation of crew and officers as key workers has been very, very helpful. NIMASA, for instance, that is the Nigerian administration, as at October, had facilitated the repatriation of more than 500 seafarers. So do that, our countries have had to kind of have a tripartite arrangement with the migration, the custom, facilitated by the Maritime Administration, so that the protocol and the requirements, the documentary requirements, are eased for the ease of transport for seafarers. That has been successful. Administrations, in addition to the shipping company, issue letters of introduction, which are shown to the migration officers at checkpoints, even though the borders had not been fully opened along all the corridors in our sub-region. Also, the Maritime Administration extended the validity of certificates complying with one of such advice from the IMO. Well, because of the protocols for the countries, all the countries were different and there were contradictions. Ports developed their own port health services clearance, which kind of, you know, they had categorized the international news, World Health Organization, however, had categorized countries into the very heavily COVID infected countries and those that are not very major. So the advice was also following that some ships will be required to stay not less than 14 days on board, and when they come out, they get tested again before they're allowed into the detention centers. Private companies were very helpful and have been very helpful in setting up and offering detention centers for use of everybody. So what was also required was that shipping companies should always inform the government to make it easier, that if they stop at intermediate ports to take on crew, the onboarding crew, that they should be informed, so that by the time that crew comes into the port of destination, their own protocol will also be designed to fit if they had indeed had COVID test and are COVID negative. These are some of the solutions that have been used in the sub-region, but that information, dissemination of information was and is very, very critical, and we still try very hard to comply with the circulars sent in by the IMO. That is all for now, so that I don't exceed the time limits allocated to me.